last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. In Illinois, foster parents are accusing the state of trampling on their religious freedom by cutting off Catholic charities over the gay rights issue. In Florida, the American Civil Liberties Union is suing the state over their new drug testing for welfare benefits program. In Arizona this week, the state is breaking the law by withholding the information from the media regarding the deaths and serious injuries of kids under the watchful eye of the child protective industry. And even though child snatchings by CPS agents is on the rise, more and more foster parents are calling it quits in the state. In Ohio, 10 people show up at a county board meeting to voice concerns and demand that the child protective industry protect the rights of parents who come into contact with the system. In Nebraska, an audit reveals that the state's child welfare privatization efforts increased costs to the state by 27%, and the state responds by giving 620 more kids to one of the contractors. The anti-abuse people in Montana are demanding changes to the child protective industry after a high-profile child abuse case that took place while being watched by CPS agents, and the head of Montana's child protective industry defends the state's efforts. In California this week, despite progress, the child protective industry in the county of Los Angeles fails to reach 16 out of 18 national standards. CPS agents in Sacramento are having a hard time finding kids to steal as child snatchings drops by 40%, but the good news is the child safety improves because of it. In Iowa, a new program is implemented to address the issue of former foster kids who are at risk of homelessness. And the state of Utah forces the adoption of another child onto another perfectly fit father after being adopted right out from under him by his ex-girlfriend before he even knew that the kid was born. In Japan this week, a voice actress kills her 3-year-old foster daughter. In the Czech Republic, 2 social workers have been charged with neglect for not ratting out the parents of an abused child. There's a new target alert in Scotland this week as the child protective industry starts snatching obese children from their families while failing to protect sensitive and private information of kids in their care. And in Sri Lanka, the child protective industry proposes the death penalty for parents accused of child abuse. In Australia, the child protective industry is urging gay people to become foster parents. The Victorian government wants to extend mandated reporter laws into the home by jailing abused women for not reporting abuse. New laws aimed at stopping parents who booted overseas with the kids during divorce proceedings are being considered by the Australian federal government, and a girl who was abused as a teenager while in the state's foster care system rejects the apology of the Australian premier by returning a letter saying that she was humiliated, tormented, and threatened while in the state's care. In England this week, a couple is banned from being foster parents because the father had smoked 2 celebratory cigars in 18 months. The Coventry City Council is still struggling with the red tape issue, and as the government tries to cut spending on the British child protective industry, the Baby P case is still being blamed for a significant increase of children being considered to be at risk of abuse or neglect in England. In Oklahoma this week, the State Bureau of Investigations is conducting a criminal inquiry into the CPS agent's handling of a little girl who died. An Oklahoma foster molester gets a new trial after it is revealed that the prosecutor once represented him in his attempts to adopt the kid he is accused of abusing. And a CPS agent from Kentucky pleads not guilty in a falsification of records case. In Pennsylvania, a couple goes to trial for the murder of a Russian orphan who they adopted. A man gets 18 months in prison for burning a cross on the front lawn of a white foster family who had taken in an African-American foster child. And a Pennsylvania judge says that CPS agents must stand trial for snatching a newborn right from the hospital after the mother tested positive for trace amounts of opiates due to the eating of a poppy seed bagel without as much as looking into what really happened. In Illinois this week, a mother inherits all kinds of money which effectively ends her ex-husband's child support obligation. In Chicago, cops handcuff several first graders for talking in class. In Texas, a grandmother fights for the rights of grandparents in the state, and a gay father fights for the right to have his husband in the house during visitations after a judge rules that he could not have the kids around any other men. In Michigan, a father is told that he must quit smoking if he wants visitation rights with his kid. A judge from Maryland gets away without having to pay back child support for an 18-year-old, although he's never paid a dime. In North Carolina, adoption agency sues to stay open after losing its accreditation, fearing that they won't be able to get any more kids for families. An illegal immigrant sues the state of Nebraska to get Medicaid benefits for her unborn child. And finally, tonight, regulations are being put to the test in New York after a sperm donor was said to have fathered 150 kids. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.